Hey everybody, welcome back to the YouTube channel. My name is Mark Pensenstadler. This is a Zenith Cruzer. This is a door, and it is done. Alright guys, when we left off at the end of part 3, I had one more step to do in polishing the glass on the door. That is done, and I finished drilling the holes, riveting the glass to the door, and I'm going to show you how I finished up the door because it was not without its problems. Now there are still some imperfections in the left-hand door here. Some of them were so deep that I couldn't sand them out, or I could have, but I was just worried about getting the material too thin. So as you can see, there's still some flaws in this piece, but they're really not noticeable once the door is done. So after I polished the glass the best I could, the next step was to open up the holes for the rivets. And I used a unibit, and I just put a black mark around it on the step that I did not want to go into the glass. So just having that black mark on there kind of helps show you how far in to put the unibit, so you don't open up the holes too far. Okay, so my method that has worked for me in the past and hopefully will work on this airplane is I just drilled the hole oversized enough to where I could put the rivet in and kind of wiggle the rivet around. But obviously the hole is not so big that the head of the rivet doesn't cover the hole. Well, once I determined the proper size for me, I just went around all my pilot holes and opened them up to the size that I'm using. A regular deburring tool seemed to work pretty well to smooth out the edges of the holes. And I get a lot of shavings on here, and the static electricity builds up and you can't really brush these shavings off. So the best way I found to get rid of them is to take them outside and just hose the glass off, and it gets rid of all the shavings. Once I dried off the door, this is kind of the fun part. Brought it up to the frame and put a few clecos in to get it ready to rivet. And then once I clecoed the door on, I needed to get the handle set in there to make sure it fits. And that's when I realized the door is locked. So I had to go around to the other side to unlock the door to be able to open it to work on this lock. Each corner of the door has a gusset plate that gets riveted on, and that's what I'm clecoing here. Well, you guys didn't really think I was going to rivet that door on without polishing the rivets, did you? Got my trusty old flits. I got my nice aluminum rivets. I put a little bit of flits on a paper towel. We'll just spin this rivet along a little bit here. Wipe it clean with a clean paper towel. Look how clean and shiny that is. You can't have dull rivets on your airplane. I found it sometimes because there's 3 layers here, you just have to kind of clean up that hole a little bit. The holes also have paint in them too, so I just use a drill bit to lightly go through it and clean up the hole so the rivet will fit. So this is the point where I ran into some problems with this door that I didn't have on the other door. Now that problem is, as I was putting clecos in here and using a drill bit to clean up some of the holes, I started to see that some of the holes on here didn't line up with the frame. I don't know what happened because they were drilled together originally, so they should be perfect. I don't know if maybe over the years actually, I think since I've started these doors, that maybe one of them heated up and expanded a little bit, or I don't know. I just don't know what happened, but things weren't fitting right with the door. So I decided to take the door off and put it on a table to where I could kind of see what was going on. What I did on some of these holes that were just slightly mismatched is I took a razor blade and I tried to kind of scrape around the hole to make the hole in the plexiglass a little bit oblong so that the rivet would slip in nicely. Not a perfect solution, but that's what I chose to do to fix this particular issue. One of the other issues I found that was causing a little bit of a fit problem was the top aft part of the door was hitting the hinge. And I never remember it hitting the hinge before. Like I said, I don't know if this door kind of expanded over time or what, but it was at this point I decided just to take a break. It was late at night and I needed to think about how to fix this door or replace it or figure out what I want to do. So I decided to call it a night. Well, the next day, the first thing I had to do was trim the top of this door. So I drew a line on it with a magic marker and a ruler, and I used my Dremel here to shave it down. And once I was done using the Dremel, I wrapped some 80 grit sandpaper in a sanding block and finished smoothing it out. Then I did it with, I think, 320 and 400 just to make a smooth edge on the top of the door. After I was finished with the top, I put the glass back on. And I've taken this on and off a few times, and it seems like every time I take it on and off, it fits differently. For example, here, these holes, you can see how they're not lining up properly. You won't get a rivet in there. But if I take the glass off and put it back on and start clecoing from a different spot, then those holes line up and other ones don't. It was kind of odd. All right, so at this point, I'm realizing the door does not fit perfectly. I didn't have this problem with the right side. It went together perfect. Now this door, I have two options. I can order a new piece of glass and cut it and trim it and sand it and buff it and polish it and redrill all the holes. Or I could just make this one fit the best I can, maybe open up some of the holes a little bit more than I wanted to and just rivet it on. Now the problem with that is that could lead to getting a few stress cracks in the glass here eventually, or it may not. It may be perfect forever, I don't know. The potential is there, I think, but we'll see what happens. Obviously, I chose to use this glass instead of going through all that work and making a new one. And if in the future, if it does crack and I need to replace it, these are just soft aluminum rivets in the door. There's probably 20 or 25 of them. They're easy enough to drill out. So once you drill these out, the door comes off, and then I can go through all that work of replacing it if I want to. Well, if I'm using this door, let's rock and roll and get this thing riveted. With the glass riveted, the next step is to put on the open arrow. I'll have these stickers listed on the aircraftstickers.com website eventually. I just haven't had time to put them on there yet. If you guys want these, they're $5 each. Just send me an email and I'll tell you how to order them. This, of course, is the door handle on the inside, and I had them powder coated. And a little bit of that powder coating got in the square hole, so I'm just using a file here to kind of get rid of some of that and open up the hole again so that it fits on the handle. Now the final step in this door, and I think I had to do this on the right side also, is when I push in and close the door, I can't get the handle down because this red thing is actually hitting the striker plate. So I have to take this off and bend this out a little bit. So here's how I have this in the vise. Obviously I don't want to scratch it, so I just have it between two pieces of wood, and I'll just grab the handle and bend it that way. So now in order to lock it, I have to actually push in on the door and rotate it down. And I like that because it holds it nice and tight against the rubber seal. I don't know if it'll be too tight. I guess I'll find that out when I start flying. If I have to adjust it later, then I just take this red handle off again and I'll bend it out a little bit more to make it a little bit looser. But for now, that seems about right. And finally, it's time to fill that big ugly hole in the door by installing one of these snap vents. All right, the final step to actually complete this door will be to rivet on these steel brackets. This I'm going to hold off on. Now this one here I can rivet. I just have to pump up the air compressor for the rivet gun, but that's ready to rivet. But you'll notice the bottom is not attached yet. You have this little plate here that will get riveted on to the doorpost somewhere. Now the problem is I don't really know where to rivet that. See how that moves as the door goes up? Because where that's riveted to the door jamb determines how high this door will open. And I don't want it to open high enough to where the glass hits the bottom of the wing. So once I have the wings installed, I'll open up the door as far as I want it. I'll mark the location of those holes on there, and then I can drill it and mount it. So in order to finish the door, I've got to do that. But like I said, I will wait till the wings are installed. All right, everybody, that is the end of part 4 of building my Cruzer doors. It's been a long journey. I think I've been working on these for, I don't know, 2 years now, on and off. So I'm glad that they're finally done. Hopefully along the way you guys maybe got some tips. But just remember, just because I'm doing something a certain way doesn't mean it's the best way, and it's certainly not the only way. You guys, as you get into your projects, hopefully will come up with your own methods of doing things, and hopefully you'll have fun doing it. If you guys noticed, we just hit 5,000 subscribers on our little YouTube community, so that's kind of cool to see the channel growing. Thank you guys for subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you hit the button down below, hit the little bell icon, that lets you know when I upload a new video. Other than that, leave your comments and questions below, as I do try to answer as many as I can. And happy building, we'll see you on the next video.